And we'll bring Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City into the conversation as, of course, it is a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get into the Eagles with Dave and some other things, including his column today on the fight. But first, Dave, it looks like after getting kind of the vote of confidence from Doug Peterson, Isaac Seumalo could be out, and Chance Warmack could be the new left guard.
Yeah, it's looking that way. I mean, I talked to a couple offensive linemen who wouldn't go on the record, but they indicated that Chance Warmack will be the left guard against the Giants. And you're right, it's kind of a confusing situation after Doug and Frank Wright both came out and gave Isaac kind of a vote of confidence. But I guess they like what they see out of Chance during training camp enough to give him a shot.
So he goes from inactive for 2 weeks to now the starting left guard. Is this the smart decision by Doug? Do you give him credit for making this move? Or do you think they're pulling the plug on Isaac too soon?
No, Isaac, I don't think he's a guard. I think he's a center at best. And Chance, he struggled in Tennessee, but he's a pretty big physical kind of guy who's been working with his old college coach, Jeff Stoutland, since joining the Eagles. So I got a feeling that they just kind of saw enough of him during camp and during practices. And it also tells me that they're probably going to run the ball a lot more than they did in the past, because that's kind of that's Warmack's specialty, is run blocking. So I would think that you're going to see LeGarrette Blount at least one time.
At least once. Good point by you, Dave. Now, Warmack, you mentioned it. Stoutland was his offensive line coach at Alabama. He's now back, reunited with him. In Tennessee, he played right guard. Here he's playing left, which is where he played in college. Maybe he's more comfortable. But do you think Stoutland maybe said, guys, look, I know this guy. I see what you guys are seeing on the tape, but we got to make a change here. Like, do you think Stoutland maybe pushed the pile a little bit on this?
It's a possibility, but I don't know if he had necessarily, endorsed one guy over another because he knows him. But I would think that Doug relies on his position coaches for their advice and their expertise. And Stoutland certainly knows the offensive line and what they're capable of doing better than anybody. So I think there's probably something a little bit to the fact that he coached him in college. But I think it's more of the fact that Seumalo struggled so badly against Kansas City that they knew they had to make the switch.
Dave, hi, Deshaun. In your opinion, is this run game salvageable? I mean, Blount really hasn't gotten a lot of carries earlier this season. Darren Sproles was the featured guy last week, and to me, Wendell Smallwood hasn't done anything since being drafted. Is this a run game that we can honestly count on for the rest of this year?
Yeah. Sorry, count on the running game, you mean?
Yes. I mean, if it gets going, basically, is it something that we can continue to count on, to rely on?
I think so, yeah, I think so, because the running game has a lot to do with confidence, and if you can establish it early enough, I thought Doug made a mistake by getting away from it too early against Kansas City, but if you can establish you can have some success early on, then I think that could carry over. I mean, that's not to say that they're going to be a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of team, because that's just not the way they're built. They're built to throw the ball, but I do think you'll see a little bit more of a balance, especially if they can get a lead in the game and be able to run out the clock a little bit, impose their will, if that makes sense, on the Giants.
So who is the guy getting those carries, though, Dave? Is it going to be Blount? Is it going to be Sproles? Smallwood gets a carry here and there. I mean, who is going to be the guy that they rely on if they have a lead in the fourth quarter this week and they need to run out the clock?
None.
That depends on the situation, really. Yeah. If I were going to guess, I have to disagree with you a little bit about Smallwood. I thought he had a pretty decent year last year before he got hurt, and don't forget he returned a kickoff for a touchdown too. So I think he's a little bit better than what you're really giving him credit for. But I think it's going to be a committee approach, like it was last year with Ryan Matthews and Sproles and Smallwood. I don't think you're going to see anybody getting like 30 carries a game, but I think they'll be able to spread it around enough where I think Blount is best suited if they get in that situation where they have the lead in the fourth quarter. I think he's the best suited for the guy to do that. Pound it inside, move the chains, take some time off the clock. If you're looking for a little more versatility, then it's Sproul.
So that's what he did, Dave, in New England. Is he had 1,200 yards, but they're giving him the ball because New England's constantly in the lead, running games out, right? So that's why his yardage looks like it's inflated, because they're up 2-3 scores in the third quarter, and they're just handing him the ball, and he's ripping off 4, 5. The defense is worn down. That's really where he excels. He doesn't excel early in the game, ripping off yards, but where he excels early in the game is getting that defense beat up a little bit so that he can get the 5 to 6 yarder late in the game. And the Eagles just aren't using him in that matter, so he's not effective.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was really puzzled by his lack of opportunities on Sunday. That just made no sense to me. They didn't give him a single carry. And Doug still hasn't really adequately explained it. Not that he has to, but I think he kind of owed it. Maybe he explained it to LeGarrette. I hope he did. But yeah, that was a really confusing game plan, to say the least. And you're right. If you can get him use him a little bit early in the game, like you said, beat up the defense a little bit, and then if you get the lead, then you use them to run out the clock and move the chains.
Dave, you talked about some of the other offensive linemen kind of saying off the record, yeah, it's going to be Chance. Do you get the sense that they were frustrated that they almost feel that Sayamala let them down?
No. They like Isaac. They do. And they're kind of feeling bad that he's not going to get the opportunity, at least right now, to work his way through it. If he was, like Lane Johnson pointed out, without saying that, when Lane was a first-round pick, number 4 overall.
Yeah, 4.
Right. When he struggled, they weren't benching him. They were giving him a chance to develop and to progress and to work through whatever issues he might have had. But when you're a third-round pick, you've been bounced around a little bit as far as different positions, and you struggle like that. Same thing with Vaitai last year. You're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they're not giving up on you, but they need to win, and this is a big game in the division, and so they can't afford to let you work through your troubles.
All right, so switching gears, staying on the offense, though, Nelson Agholor. A lot of people aren't talking about him and how he's been looking the first 2 weeks, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's been catching the football. He caught a touchdown last week and in the first week, too.
That was a tough catch, too, by the way.
Exactly.
Back of the end zone, keeping the feet in.
Has he turned the corner? Is it time to start taking Nelson Agholor, I know it's still early, but serious as a weapon in this offense?
Yeah, I think so. So his problem has never been ability, I don't think. It's always been between the ears, where he just didn't have the confidence and the focus that you need to excel at this level. But he was a first-round pick for a reason. I mean, he's got the size. He has the speed. He's a very good route runner. And I think he did have some issues catching the ball his first 2 years, and that seems to be rectified now. I haven't seen him drop a pass, and gosh, I can't tell you when. And the fact you combine that with his route running and his physical abilities, and now his mental focus is better than it's ever been. I don't know what he did to fix it, but I think he's done a really good job of putting everything together. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him as one of their go-to guys for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and the funny part is he was counted on last week.
Right.
He wasn't really. I mean, what do you have? One catch, the touchdown. That was it. It seemed that
that's true.
It kind of shows the amount of weapons, because Ertz has really been a part of it. I thought they got Jeffrey involved pretty good. Last week was the 7 catches. They threw the ball to Torrey Smith. He ended up having 2 big drops, but he also made a couple of plays. It just shows that there is a lot of weapons here. But my question, Dave, is does Doug Peterson think there's too many weapons, and that's why he throws the ball all the time? He's got this shiny toy that he just can't put down, this Carson Wentz.
There's probably something to that. Yeah, I know he's pretty enamored with Carson and what he can do, but he does have to limit his throws. I mean, you can't have the guy throwing 60 times a game, 50 times a game, and expect them to last the entire season, not only just from an arm perspective, but from just a protection perspective, because he's taking a beating the first 2 games. I mean, he's getting hit every time he goes back. The offensive line just hasn't done a very good job of protecting him. So, but yeah, I think there might be something to that. He did kind of hint that he was going to do that against Kansas City because of the the defense that they presented to him. But I think you might be right. There's the quarterback in him and the offensive and the quarterback's coach in him. When you get a guy like Carson Wentz to work with, you can't but try to take advantage of it as much as you can, I guess.
Also, Dave, give us a little insight on what's going to happen in the secondary with the safety position here. I know there's a lot of guys standing around with hamstring issues. They tried to pick up a safety off waivers yesterday. They got blocked. Apparently, they got one from Buffalo today.
Yeah, what a shock, right?
Right. Well, it seems right. A Buffalo safety with Jim Schwartz. It seems that though that there's some concern about the amount of bodies they might have. Camus might play some safety.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to see Chris Marigo start with Malcolm, which he's done in the past. Not very well, but
right.
He's a serviceable option, I guess, because I was talking to Corey Graham today. It didn't sound like he'd be able to play, if the game was tomorrow. So I guess they're hoping for him to make a comeback. I'm not counting on McLeod or Jalen Watkins to be able to go. So yeah, they're really beat up back there, and that is a source of concern for them.
With that, we saw Rasul Douglas get thrusted into play. This is one of those interesting stories to me, Dave, because realistically, if Watkins doesn't get hurt and if Darby doesn't get hurt, they don't want to put McLeod. In fact, he was inactive the first week.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he was the highest-rated player. Pro Football Focus had him as the highest-rated player. 4 tackles, a pass broken up. I mean, he looked like a kid that they drafted in the 3rd round, and it's a shame that he wouldn't have possibly got on the field had it not been for some injuries.
Yeah, it's a little surprising to me. I know he kind of got off to a slow start during training camp in the preseason. I don't know if the game was maybe just a little too big for him at first, kind of like overwhelmed considering where he – and I went to West Virginia, but he was kind of an unsung kind of guy before last season. So I don't know if maybe he was just a little bit overwhelmed by the atmosphere and the circumstances. But as camp went on and as the preseason went on, I thought he made drastic improvements. And I guess maybe they just wanted them to sit back 1 or 2 more weeks just to get his feet wet, just to get used to everything. But I was kind of expecting him to play this week anyway, to be honest with you.
He played well last week. That Eagles secondary's got their hands full, Dave, but except for the pass rush. That's the big factor. Let's take an early look at this game with the Giants. You watched the Giants play on Monday night, and you got to be thinking, if you're the Eagles walking around that locker room today, they are probably smiling ear to ear.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants offensive line, they've been having some injury trouble, shuffling guys around. Haven't done a very good job of protecting their quarterback either, so yeah, when you put, Brandon Graham and those guys got to be licking their chops at the prospect that you're going against those guys. And I think that's probably like the biggest key for the Eagles is their pass rush now, especially when you're talking about with the secondary being so banged up. The more they get to Eli, the more they can rattle him, the more they can hit him, the less chance he has of getting the ball to Odell Beckham Jr. and those guys. So I think it's imperative for the Eagles to put as much pressure as possible on Eli. It looks like they'll be able to do that.
By the way, the Eagles claim safety Trey Elson from Buffalo, and Janoris Jenkins, B.J. Goodson still sidelined at Giants practice. So there's some news on the Giants side of things. They're banged up on defense. We know they got all sorts of problems on the offensive line. This is the kind of game, Dave, you can knock the Giants to 0-3 and put yourself at 2-1. I know it's early, but do you get the sense around this team that they know that they can maybe not deliver a knockout blow, but get you knocked back into the corner?
Oh yeah, they're very well aware of that, and plus the fact that it's their home opener. The first 2 games are on the road, as you know, so they're really looking forward to getting back into the link. The home crowd figures to be really revved up for it. Especially, the Philly sports fans have been, dying for this for the last couple months, considering what the Phillies have put out there lately. I know Reese Hoskins has had a great couple months, but other than that, there really hasn't been a whole lot to root for. So I know that the Philly sports fans are really looking forward to this, and I think that's going to be I think that'll be a big factor on Sunday. But you're right, the players are really looking forward to. They know that. Not only can they go 2-0 in the division, but they can also knock the Giants to 0-3 on the season, and that would make it very difficult for them to get back into the playoff hunt.
And 0-3 in the conference. I talked about a knockout blow, getting knocked into the corner. Hall of Fame boxing writer Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City. He wrote the column today saying that boxing's lack of judgment is appalling. 118-110 was the most egregious score I could probably ever remember, Dave. And I said the night that it happened, there's one judge that it's like a baseball umpire. You know a handful of them. I know one boxing judge. When they say Adelaide Bird, I know exactly who that is. And that's a problem. And you said Larry Hazard called it the curse of boxing. What was your thoughts Saturday night? Because I know you were looking forward to this fight.
I was, yeah. I mean, there was no way I was missing that. I was even half tempted to go to Vegas for it, to be honest with you. That's how much I was looking forward to it. And, you know, when I heard 118-110, I'm thinking, okay, well, Triple G might have won 10 rounds.
Yeah.
I mean, possibility. But when she gave it to Alvarez, I fell off my chair. And there's no way that she should be allowed to judge ever again. That's awful.
Do you agree, though, Dave, that she is known for this? Like, when I hear when Buffer says it, the judge's scorecard, Mrs. Adelaide Bird. I know it to a tone. I know exactly how he says it because she's always there.
Yeah, it's a really big problem for the Nevada Boxing Commission. I mean, you can't, when you have this kind of a mega fight, and this is the one fight that you don't want to, you're trying to avoid controversy as much as possible. You want the fans to get what they wanted because, you know, first of all, they shelled out money, and if you want them to do it again, you can't have this kind of cloud over your event. And they never should have allowed her at ringside anyway. Like you said, she's had some problems in the past with controversial scoring. The one thing that would puzzle me about Nevada is they also use the same judges for UFC that they use for boxing, and that's just ridiculous to me. They're two completely different disciplines, and I don't know how you can be a so-called expert on one and the other too. It just that makes no sense to me at all. And she is one of them. So, yeah, I just think that they made a really big mistake by putting her at ringside with the other two guys.
How do you know how you get appointed to be a judge? Like, I thought that the promoters kind of said we want X, Y, and Z, or we don't want so and so.
Well, usually I know in the New Jersey's case, like Larry Hazard has a select list of judges. He has probably like 6 or 7 guys and women that he can count on, that he knows that'll deliver a pretty fair and impartial verdict. I mean, you know, like the Steve Weisfeld and those kind of guys. He knows that he can rely on them, and when there's a big fight that comes to town, he turns to them, and then it's usually the promoters usually will agree or disagree or ask to have somebody removed or you know, try to point out some sort of question with a judge or two, even the referee as well. The referee also. So it's usually the commission that makes the decisions, but the respective camps do have the right to at least protest. I mean, they don't have to listen to them, but there are cases where judges and referees have been chased because a fighter's camp just has a problem with them, or there's a conflict of interest that the commission might not have known about. That kind of thing.
New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame writer Dave Weinberg. So Hazard's toying with the idea of maybe changing some things up, and you also threw a possibility, or he threw some possibilities out there. You threw some ideas out there too about how can maybe they fix some of this mess.
Yeah. Larry's been toying with the idea of using 4 or 5 judges, and just to have like a more voices, I guess. My idea was to rotate them around, don't have them sitting at the same spot for an entire fight, have them, alternating different sections of the ring so they can get different vantage points. I thought that would be a good idea. And he's also, I don't know if you remember, it was probably like 15, 16 years ago, he actually implemented a different scoring system. Where, say you have like 3 judges scoring a fight. First round, 2 judges scored one way for one fighter, 1 judge scores it the other way, then the guy who won the majority gets the round. So there's just like one score, master scorer at the end of the fight. And I thought it worked pretty well, but for whatever reason, I guess boxers or trainers or whatever were complaining about it. I don't know why, and they just scrapped it and went back to the original system. Why, I don't know, but I know he's thinking about reinstituting it. as soon as, if they ever get a big fight back in Atlantic City, then he's thinking of using it then.
Triple G, Canelo, May, Bader Field.
That's right. Come on, do it. Or on the beach. I don't care. Anywhere. Just somewhere outside. I mean, the weather's going to be nice. There's no hurricane season in May. Why not? Let's do it.
Be a good idea. Be great to see. And that fight, you think? What they say? They have 3 weeks to decide on the rematch.
Correct. Yeah. They. From what I understand, Canelo's not really like enthusiastic about it. Why? I don't know. But.
Well, he lost 10 out of 10 rounds. No, just kidding. I don't know. What'd you have? I had it 117, 111.
116, 112 for Triple G. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I could see 117, 111, even 118, 110, but not for.
Well, exactly. When she said 118, 110, I was like, okay, that's 10 rounds. That's a. But you could justify, but not for Canelo.
Yeah, really.
And I was rooting for Canelo. I thought I picked Canelo to win.
Yeah, did you? Yeah. Okay. I picked Triple G, but yeah, I can see it. And I was almost as upset as the guy who scored it a draw. I don't know what the heck he was looking at either.
Well, when you're in on the fix, someone's got to have a draw.
There you go. Right. Probably cast in the betting window.
Right. Read Dave's full article at pressofatlanticcity.com about the decision Saturday night. It's a real good article with some good ideas on maybe how to fix the corruption in the judging of boxing, Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. Hopefully they'll do it again in May. Who knows? Maybe they'll find a nice spot here on the beach in Atlantic City. Dave, we'll talk again next week, pal.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, Mike. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.